I truly believe there is some greater power for bad. Once something is invented, there's these crabs that descend on it to gain control or make more money or whatever. And I don't think that people become billionaires on their own. I believe that people are allowed to become billionaires. Everything.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Baker Leavitt of Black Rifle Coffee fame, serial entrepreneur, as well as a guy that does crisis management and PR for the rich and the powerful. He's a guy that can make things happen and has an intriguing story, been all around the world, been involved with so many different businesses. We're going to talk about how people can position their business for success. We're going to talk about the hunter voter turnout in 2024. We're going to talk hunting. We're going to talk business. It's going to be fun. Thank you, Baker, for joining us today. You doing all right?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this conversation now, ever since we talked a few weeks ago on the phone. Excited to be here.
Would you mind telling people a little bit about yourself? You've been successful in a lot of different industries, retail, real estate. You know how to make things happen. You seem to have, you're an extremely connected individual from all strata of society, whether it be in politics, business, in the hunting world. And I'm kind of interested in what motivates you. You've been successful in so many different areas, and you continue to push forward, and you kind of have a broad and deep experience base. And I wanted to know what is it that drives you?
I have a binary mind. Things are either good or bad, right or wrong. You know, my life is a light switch. Lights are on, lights are off. And I've never done anything based on money, and I think that's probably why I've had the level of success that I have, is because I've never made decisions based on what was in it for me. Never. I don't really have any recollection of ever doing that once in my life. It's always been, what's the right decision? And then the money will kind of follow that. You know, like as I get older, my network expands, and you get older, you get wiser, which I think is the best part of growing older. But like I've always just kind of focused on the greater good of the team. I'm not like a CEO type. I'm not a founder. I've co-founded a few companies, but like I'm not the guy that has the brilliant idea and assembles the team. I am the guy that the brilliant dude that comes up with the idea. It's like, oh, I need him on my team. And I kind of take pride in that. Like I'm a spoke in a wheel. I can handle the work capacity of multiple spokes. And I've never had main character syndrome. I've never wanted to be the guy. I've never wanted to be in front of a camera. I've always taken pride in creating the news, not being the news, because I learned kind of early on that when you are the news, it's fleeting. So like, and that goes back to like, I was a very good high school athlete, and I was good enough to be on a college football team. Okay, I wasn't good enough to play, but I was good enough to be on the team. And I remember like I was hot shit in high school. I was hot shit.
Yeah.
And I got to college, and on the third day of summer camp, I learned, you hear guys that never tried something, like, oh, what might have been, oh, I should have tried that. I learned what was not. And that was me being a college football player. I was good enough to stay on the team, but I wasn't good enough to play. And that taught me a lesson that like, if you're the star, you're the famous person, that can be taken away as soon as the next level. Like you might be good enough to climb levels and you go up the ladder a few rungs, but you don't know when the top of that ladder is going to hit or when you're going to run out of levels. And so that taught me early on that, I don't want to be the star. I don't want to be the guy, because that can end. But if I am behind the camera, behind the scenes, pulling the strings, being the marionette, making things happen, there's value there. And people will always seek you out, because like you'll never hear me say, that was me. I did that. I started that. I take credit for one thing in life. And that's my drink company, Killcliff. Without me, that company wouldn't have achieved what it did. And that's that's just because I'm the guy that took Killcliff and put it in the CrossFit space. and then kind of nurtured it through there. But other than that, like you won't hear me take credit for anything. Like Black Rifle Coffee, if I never met Evan Hafer and I never was a part of that brand would be in the exact same position it is today. And that's how I look at things. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and I'm absolutely, I don't view myself as like the most important guy on a team. I provide value in different opportunities, but like, I like to, whenever people start, kind of getting cocky or I'm the man, I did this, I'm responsible for all this. It's like, think about this. If I erased you or I erased myself from the history of a company, Black Rifle Coffee, for example, if Baker Leavitt, if I never met Evan Hafer, how much of an impact would that have had on Black Rifle? Literally zero. Black Rifle would still be in the position it's in today, with or without me. Take Evan, for example, or let's say JT. If you pull JT out of Black Rifle, it still will do well, but it's not going to be the company that it is. Same with Matt Best. If you remove Evan Hafer from the history of Black Rifle Coffee, Black Rifle doesn't exist. And that's how I tell people, like, hey, man, like, look at yourself in the history of whatever organization you're a part of. Like, how important were you? Are you really that important? And I think a lot of times, people with like main character syndrome, it kind of like knocks them down a few rungs. Like I've never had main character syndrome. I won't ever have it. It's just not who I am. Like I'm just a team player, but I'm really good at what I do. And if there's Todd Ehrlich, who's the founder of Kill Cliff, I was a co-founder. Todd told me one day, he said, if there's 10 skills in business, you're as good as anybody in the world at 3, Baker. He's like, you're good at 4, and then the other 3, you're a subhuman. And that's things like accounting and logistics. Like I would be the worst person in the world if you put me in those departments. And so I focus on the things that I'm good at. And I focus on I don't believe in working on your weaknesses. I think it's a complete waste of time. Why would I want to be marginally better at something I sucked at? Because that's not my job. That's not what I do. And I think a lot of my mindset comes from my father died when I was 5 years old. My brother was 8 weeks old. My mom was in graduate school. And so my brother and I both played sports all year long. And my mother was a teacher. She was an educator. And we spent a tremendous amount of time like waiting to go places, waiting, this and that. So you have to spend, like if you're raised in a single parent household, you spend an inordinate amount of time entertaining yourself.
Yeah.
So I've always been drawn to things that I think are fun. And so everything I do, I will not touch a project. I will not sniff a project unless I'm going to enjoy it, because life's just too short. I don't do things I don't like to do.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. Ask my wife. I'm not doing dishes. I'm not folding clothes. I don't make beds because I think that's stupid. However, my wife is in Denver with one of her girlfriends right now, and I, being the big boy that I am, made my bed this morning, and I made it yesterday. I took a photo. I sent it to her. I even posted it on Instagram. I was so proud of myself. But, I don't do things that I don't like to do. Man.
Yeah, we're all, as men, I think we're all still a middle school guy trying to entertain ourselves. Singing and dancing is fun, but nothing's as fun as making money, and nothing's as fun as hunting it, which I looked at the two as kind of similar, being in the pursuit of something. And I think when you talk about the main character syndrome and everyone wanting to be the CEO, there's at our stage in life, and you're in the second half of life, there's kind of two kinds of people at some point. There's the humble and the humbled. And I feel like I myself am both, but you want to keep your head low to the ground so the fall isn't as drastic when you hit. And business is one of those situations. It's like playing the piano. When you play the piano, you have to play it with all 10 fingers. And sometimes your pinkies or whatever might not be as have the dexterity of the rest of it. And that's when you need to bring in people that are better than you. And by bringing in people that are better than you, and then you have to draw inspiration from their success in your business, and then you get that synergy. But if you can't give credit where credit's due, and you discount the work of others, I think you're not going to have the enjoyment of the synergy, and I don't think you're going to get as far.
No, I agree with that. I don't ever seek out credit. Like I let other people take credit. Just because everyone knows the role that I play and everything I do, and everyone knows the value that I bring to the table. And I think probably one of the more rewarding things is like I've got to a point in life now and in my career where when I speak, and this is involving projects and business and stuff, when I speak, people listen to me. And that's probably one of the goals I've sought out in life is to be respected.
Credibility.
When I'm talking about, when I'm like third party validation. Like there's two other things I want in life is when I call someone, I want them to answer on the first ring, and I want someone to put my weights up at the gym.
Yeah. I only want two things. I only want two things.
Two goals.
I just want to eat and be skinny.
The skinny part is tough, dude. Like I'm 230 pounds, I'm 5'10", and I just want to be like super lean.
Yeah.
And like a surfer build, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah. I think food tastes better as you get older. I don't know, man.
It certainly does. And your taste buds evolve, because I think about food that like they would have to beat my ass as a child to eat, like mushrooms.
Yeah.
I would, not happening. Now I love mushrooms. So that's another interesting thing about as you get older, like, and you get wiser and your taste buds evolve and all this stuff. It's like things that I just wouldn't touch as a child, foods. Now I love.
There's a lot of strange things about that. I know how I understand where you're coming from. When you're young, I think you like filet mignon. As you're older, you enjoy the cheaper cuts as you find out they might have more flavor. And you start off when you're young, like how kids eat cheese pizza and like a ham and cheese sandwich. And then somewhere in the line, you start eating some rotten shit. And for some reason, it tastes better. Like when I was a kid, I used to think like a lot of those pâtés and like liverwurst and all that stuff was rotten. And now I've ate some of it and I'm like, I understand how this has lasted the test of time. I don't know. There's something that as you get older, your mouth, it develops to enjoy some of the most things that were the most repulsive to you when you were young.
I'm still not down with pâté and liver. I don't like the organ meats, dude. I can't.
You think you're better than me?
No. My palate is very unsophisticated, but it's funny you mentioned about the cuts in meat, because I agree. I like sirloin. I think it's a fantastic cut of meat. Like versus like the high end cuts and like the dry age, 47-day dry age. Like that tastes like feet to me. Like it's interesting. It's like the things that like society in general like tries to push us towards, and there's things that we do in society because there's some external force that we weren't a part of the negotiation that kind of guides us, like, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And I did a lot of that stuff like in my early years. Like I went to the University of Georgia, I was in a fraternity, you got out, supposed to marry this type of girl by this age and all that stuff. And I realized that those were massive mistakes. And like, it's interesting, back to, my father passing away, my mother said, I always wanted to raise myself. And she didn't have the strength to fight me. And so she just let me do my own thing. And back to business, I've always done things my way. Like I do not fit in a box. Like any company and organization I work with, like I'm not even on the org chart in some of these companies. And it's hard. I do things my way and I always provide value, which is my goal. But I don't fit in your average structure of your average organization. Like I'm an extreme outlier, and because I wake up every day and I go to where the opportunities are throughout the day. Like I don't wake up with like a super structured day like a lot of people do. Like I have a schedule and I have a calendar, but like I just go find opportunities, and I guess that's probably why I like hunting so much, is because like you just wake up, you go out in the field and you're like, I got a kind of a rough plan on what I'm going to do today, but I'm just going to kind of do things and they always just tend to work out for me. And I guess I've just been lucky, or maybe good, but whatever. It's been a wild ride. It's been interesting. Like starting in CPG stuff, and now I'm doing a ton of political stuff in DC. And I went to DC last January and gave a talk about social media, big tech censorship as it applies to conservative individuals on social media. And there was some lobbyists in the room that really liked what I had to say. and they like, hey, can we have a chat next week? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I just remember talking to him, and one thing led to another. And now I do a ton of stuff in DC, which has just been a blast. A lot of fun, a lot of fun, but an interesting town. It's a weird place. I think DC is Hollywood for ugly people. So the people in Hollywood, they're attractive, generally speaking, and they all crave power. They're not out there for money. They're out there for power and control. And the people in DC are there for power and control. They have one thing going for them above Hollywood. They're much smarter. They're more intelligent, but they're ugly. And a lot of them are genetically kind of mutants.
I might fit in. You know, my family's pretty ugly. The women in my family look like the men with wigs on.
Dude, the people in DC, man, like there's two people there. You got people, majority of them crave power, and there's a small component that want money, and there's a really small component that want money and power. And I remember my first meetings out there with some senators and congressmen, and I just thought, how are these people in charge? Like, who voted for these people? Like, I've not met one person in DC that I would trust to control a single facet of my life better than I can. But if you were to ask every single one of them, they'd be like, oh yeah, this is how you should be living your life and doing these things. They're just a bunch of weirdos, man. It's just completely bizarre.
There's something I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted your insight on this, because we talk about social media, we talk about the power structure in society today. And it seems like if you look at things from a very high altitude, the people that are in power, they're levers. They're just levers that are pulled by someone else. And it seems like that, like you talk about, you don't fit into a structure, and that you always went your own way. But there is this pool in society that it feels like that at the top, the most important thing is how governable we as citizens are. And that being governable is what is important to those in power. We are sheep for the rich. We are cattle for those that control the world. And it seems like that social media has been the greatest way to lead people, steer people, control narratives. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this. As in society, where do you think that we are headed, and do you think that we have much autonomy, that we have self-governance?
With regards to the rest of the world, absolutely, the most. With regards to our founding fathers' vision, no, I don't. Like, I mean, we still have it better than anyone. It's not even close. But based on what our founding fathers wanted, no, I don't think we have autonomy and self-governance. The big thing is big tech. So big tech, like if I were to walk through my house, it's all data. And when you have data, you pattern human behavior. And once you pattern human behavior, you can control human beings. Like directly in front of me on the other side of this laptop is a vacuum. It's a smart vacuum. Why do I have a smart vacuum? Why does my vacuum need to connect to Wi-Fi? So it can boost data, how I vacuum my house. My washer dryer has Wi-Fi. Why was that? Because it sends my data. So, and I also think I truly believe there is some greater power for bad, that I believe there's like a massive cabal. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, but I do think there's some type of controlling structure. And I don't think that people become billionaires on their own. Okay. Like minus oil and gas. Minus oil and gas. Let's take oil and gas completely out of the equation, because that's different. But like, I believe that people are allowed to become billionaires, the majority of them. So like Reid Hoffman, for example, who is a Democratic mega donor. I think, and from people that I know that are in his circle, the guy that they know isn't the guy that you see masquerading and parading anti-Trump this and funding these lawsuits. there's a theory that, these certain people are allowed to become billionaires and the multi-billionaires, and then every once in a blue moon, the phone rings, like, hey, you're up. You got to go do this. You got to fund this thing. You got to pay for this thing. So I think big tech was invented for good. It's like everything, nuclear and dynamite and all that stuff and gunpowder was invented for good. And then we as humans somehow figure out a way really quickly to use it for bad, like, look at the Constitution, the greatest document ever written in the history of the world, probably next to the Bible. And it was written hundreds of years ago. And to this day, the things about it still hold true. It's I don't know, man. I could wrap myself around that thought process and that thought exercise, but like, I don't think it would really do any good if I were to spend my days like worrying about those things. So I just kind of like live my life to the best of my ability, have fun, be happy.
Yeah, it seems like a great avenue to spread social contagion, and it's an easy way to give that exposure and amplify it. And then those that control reach, they seem to have that's how they navigate society. That's where, like when you and I were growing up, there was no kid at school that wanted to be a cat or a girl. There was no boy that wanted to be a girl or girl that wanted to be the opposite gender. There was tomboys and effeminate people, but they weren't applauded if they stepped out of the social norms. And now to step out of a social norm, which helps to deconstruct society and helps to deteriorate it, that's celebrated in a way that's concerning. I think that back to your point where you say you just try to have fun. I think the best thing for strong men to do is focus on what they're best at and focus on creating value. And I think that good wins when you pursue your talents and when God gives you a gift and you exploit it. I think that where we're headed, strong men are going to be further empowered because there's going to be a tremendous weakness around us.
I completely agree with that. If you look at Generation Z, which I think is the young one, like those young men, the boys in that are lifting weights and starting to do some of the things that we did. Like Trump, I think Trump's biggest pickup was Gen Z, because I think those kids are kind of sitting around and looking around. And I think everything is cyclical. Everything. Like if you go back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, like people lived in cities and they went out to the suburbs, and it was like on a 20, 30-year cycle, and then they would go back into the cities and then back out to the suburbs, and things would expand. And I think we're in year, 15 now of having Instagram.
Yeah.
And Instagram is having a tremendous identity crisis. So Instagram was invented as a photo sharing app, which is great. I love high-res photos. I love great photos. And then they look at TikTok and they see what TikTok is doing with the teenagers and the kids. And then Instagram wanted to become TikTok. So now all it is a bunch of reels. And it's like, hey man, I don't want to see reels. I want to look at photos. So like, I don't spend as much time on Instagram as I used to. So I think life in general is on cycles. Like if you look at the pendulum swung far left, in 2020, and then the pendulum's kind of starting to swing back. And I think ultimately common sense will prevail.
You and I share a lot of very common interest. I mean, singing and dancing is fun, but nothing's as fun as making money. We like hunting. We like a lot of the masculine pursuits. And I wanted to ask if you didn't have a dad. He unfortunately passed away. Right. And you seem to have filled that role for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So how did you get into hunting? Because my dad took me when I was a little boy. And when I was 9 years old, he brought me out to quail hunting. How did you get it when you didn't have that avenue?
Masculine, athletic, strong. I hate the term alpha males, but I'll use that term for lack of a better descriptor. that's what we do in the South. That's what we did. And I hunted because I felt like I was supposed to. So I taught myself to hunt at 15. I borrowed a rifle, and my family has a farm in Sylvania, Georgia. And dude, I didn't know anything about hunting.
You just went out there with the gun, got in
The
trouble.
Remington 700 30-06, and I had Winchester 165 silver tip ammo. And we were up at our farm for Thanksgiving, and I remember like driving out to the farm probably 45, 30 minutes before sunset, and I walked up to the edge of the pasture, and there was like 8 deer standing out in the field. And I said, oh, wow, this is easy. And I put the rifle on a fence post, put it center mass, squeezed the trigger, boom, and the deer ran off. So my brother and I, he was little. I was 16. 16. We walked down to the where the deer was, and it wasn't there. I was like, shit, man, I must have missed. And turned around and walked back, got in the car and went back to the house. And I told my grandfather and my uncle, and they're like, oh, you didn't look for it? I was like, yeah, we walked down to where it was. They're like, no, you got to go look for it. I was like, oh, really? So we went back the next morning, and we're driving through the field, and my grandfather we were walking, my grandfather was driving. He's like, all right, so he turns the van around and he's driving back out. And I went, oh my God, here it is. Go get Tom. That's what we call my grandfather. And my brother took off running, and he goes, here's another one. And so it was a big old doe with a yearling standing behind it. And the bullet went through both, and they ran maybe 80 yards and piled up dead. And that's how I got started hunting. And then hunted deer in the South my whole life. And then that was 1992, 93, 92. And then I always wanted to go to Africa because I remember watching, what was the hunting show back in the day? Wild Kingdom. That was the show. I think I described Southern hunters as in 2 categories. You either want to go out west and chase elk, or you want to go to Africa. And I always wanted to go to Africa, and then got into real estate. And I remember my brother's last deployment. He went from Mosul, Iraq to Monrovia, Liberia. He came back, and then he's getting out of the Marine Corps. And then I took him to Africa in 2004 or 2005. It was 2004. So my first like big hunting experience was in Africa. My first travel experience, and I just fell in love with Africa, and I've been back a dozen times since, going back in August. But yeah, man, I just kind of taught myself. And sitting in a deer stand when I was growing up, in high school was torture for me, sitting still. And now it's my favorite thing in the world to do, is just sit there in absolute silence.
Mine too, waiting for the amp. You're making me sentimental, you bastard. My first gun was a Remington 700 30-06, and I had a very similar experience hunting on my family farm in Missouri, and as well as Africa. So the first time I went, I was at an auction. My brother is a well-known hunter, and when he was getting his company started, he had a table at a Dallas Safari Club auction, and he didn't know a lot of people, and he had 2 extra seats, and he asked me if I wanted to go, and I went. And there was 60 auctions up for bid, and all the rich people spent their money by like item number 55, and they got drunk, went home, and so the last items were going for next to nothing. And by the end of the auction, there was me and a few other guys there, and they had a 14-day African safari. They started the bidding at $14,000. No one would bid, and it got all the way down where he got to $1,000. No one said their hand. He goes, "Will someone give me $900 for this hunt?" And I was a personal trainer at that time, but I had $900 saved, and I said, "I'll do it." And I got a 14-day safari, and after that, I was like you, man. I'm hooked. I've been 20. I just came back from my 26th safari in 26 years. And I think that is the last great adventure available to man.
I completely agree with that. There's something about Africa that takes a hold of you. It either grabs you or it doesn't. It's like an elk bugle or a turkey gobble. When you hear that first gobble, you're either a turkey hunter the rest of your life or you're not. And the same thing with elk. Africa, it's not necessarily an audible thing. It's just, for me, I took, I got married in August. Melissa and I have been together since 2020. We got married August the 1st. And I took her with me 2 years ago. And within 2 hours, she goes, I now understand why this is your favorite place on the planet.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, it's self-explanatory. We were in East Cape, up in the mountains, first morning. This is in July or August, and it was like 19 degrees. By 11 o'clock, it's like, hey, do we have any sunscreen? Because like it's cooking me. And when you go to Africa with someone that's never been, the greatest question, and I get chills thinking about it. Hey, what's that? That's an impala. Can I shoot that? Well, you can, but maybe we wait a little bit for a bigger one, more mature ram. And then 2 days later, they've seen 400 impala. But like when they see like their first sable or Cape buffalo or stuff like that, they're just like, or even like a black wildebeest, which is the ugliest animal on this planet. They're like, what the hell is that?
It's like Land of the Lost, man. It's like you feel like you're amongst dinosaurs, and the soil in Africa has not changed since the time of the dinosaurs. So you are literally walking on the same ground, and it's got that feel, man.
There's actually, what's really interesting, there's no bacteria in the air in Africa, believe it or not. Most people don't know that. And there's no light pollution, so the photos are amazing. The experience is amazing. The food's just phenomenal. I don't know, we're going this August. My birthday is August the 6th. I turned 50. I'm going for elephant. Never had any interest in elephant until I was at Don Trump Jr.'s cabin a few years ago. He was telling me about it. Mike Scobie was there. He told me all about it, and I was like, I think that's something I'll do. So I'm going for a tuskless cow in August, and I cannot wait. Dryland hippo, cow.
Oh wow! You're doing the two most dangerous hunts in Africa, because people don't know this, but a tuskless cow, because she doesn't have tusks to defend herself, she gets pushed around a lot. And tuskless cows, in response, build up an aggressiveness. So the most likely elephant to charge you is a tuskless cow. And when you're hunting hippo on the ground, they're out at night feeding, or for whatever reason, they're away from the river, but they're not far from it, and they always return back. And if you are between them and the water and they want to get there, whether it's one that you want to harvest or not, you got a problem to deal with. So you're going on some thrillbilly stuff, man.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. And what's funny is we were over there and like they were trying to push some blue wildebeest in our direction so she could get a shot at one. Like we were running out of time. And I remember a herd of blue wildebeest were running by us, and like she's sitting on the ground behind the rifle and I'm kind of kneeling beside her. And I totally forgot about this, like how freaked out she got. She's like, oh my God. I was like, it's a blue wildebeest. Like I have zero concern. Like I'll stand up and wave my arms and they'll run away. And she's like, should I be worried? Is this elephant dangerous? And I was like, oh, for sure. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely dangerous. Like I was like, we'll be walking amongst them. We're there for 12 days. And like, we're going to log a bunch of miles on foot, and we're going to be amongst elephants every day, and it's going to be awesome. And so she's a little nervous, man, but like, I'm pretty stoked. I can't.
Oh, you're going to have fun, man. I'm envious, because when you're walking amongst the elephants, you really are like surrounded by brontosauruses. I don't think it would feel much different. I was there one time, and we were hunting in Tanzania, and poachers in like a Toyota Hilux had been shooting the elephants with AK-47s. And so anytime you were around a truck, they would charge it. And so we were in tall grass, and the truck pulled up to get us. And all of a sudden, these elephants in the tall grass, you could see their trunks go up like periscopes, and they're trying to identify the location of the smell. And so they're just running through the grass trying to hit whatever it is, and they're passing right by us. And so we get to the truck and we start driving off, and now they see it moving, they start coming. And it was like Jurassic Park, where you see the T-Rex in the mirror. That thing got so close to us, and I was scared. I had my rifle in my hand, but the PH had restraint, and we didn't pull the trigger. But that was probably the most scared that I have ever been in the wilderness, because people don't realize, like, an elephant, when it's moving, you can't believe the speed. And it really is an irresistible force. And Africa just makes you feel so small in the universe compared to the animals. And like you're talking about, there's zero light pollution, so you see the stars. You get me excited, man. I'm like, if there was a booking agent around here right now, I'd write the check.